attempt to extinguish these rights away, even some of them that existed prior to us having planning legislation in this country. There's roads along West Bay Beach that were there for 40, 50, 60 years. And we have proof of that. We luckily have aerial photography in the LIS, the Land Information System, that proves irrefutably that those accesses existed. So when you hear all the discussion about whether we can move them or amalgamate them or extinguish them entirely, believe me when I tell you, that is not what the position at law is. The problem with that law is that it is outdated and it needs to be amended so that those rights can be enforced by any member of the public. I personally took the time and drafted the legislative amendments to create the ability to enforce those rights. Back in 2017, I gave it to the opposition. They tabled it. It was subsequently defeated by Kurt Tibbetts, conveniently convincing Ezra Miller, who had filed the motion, that those amendments were already going to be taken care of by amendments to the registered land law, which has nothing to do with the prescription law. The registered land law actually recognizes that the prescription law and those rights that exist, that belong to the public of this country, that are indefeasible, are not governed by that law. And I have seen decisions made by certain tribunals in this country that clearly indicate to me that not even those tribunals understand that. I don't know whether they're confused or whether they are deliberately conflating that with another type of easement under the registered land law. But I know this: if I am elected, I'm going to make this one cause that I'm going to fight for. This is far too long in the waiting, and I'll be damned if I'm going to have one of these. Hear someone around here singing "Jack don't want me to bathe on his beach." That is not something that I would allow. We need marine life conservation, not just terrestrial conservation, but we need, and we have now, we just recently had amendments to the marine parks. Kudos to the government for that, for finally doing that. That's been long in the waiting. But what they've done, which is very telling, is at the same time they've massively expanded the Anchorage area in Georgetown Harbor. One wonders what drives that initiative. Could it be that they intend, if they return to office, to recreate that old project that they claimed they've parked, that cruise port, the one that Shirley fought along with CPR, to put to bed without us having any. They were proposing that we move forward with a facility that cost us on paper $500 million, and if we know anything about government projects, we know that what they proposed or what the budgeted costs are will be exceeded by several $1 million. We were going to engage in that project without an EIA and without a referendum. Why? Because this government, represented by the incumbent of this district, the premier, refuses and has consistently refused to engage with the public on anything. He surely believes that he has all the answers. He doesn't need to consult anyone. And we have heard this sort of thing from him before. Those of you who are familiar with the school projects that he proposed years ago will recall that he said God would have to come down and tell him to stop the project. And we got the schools built at a massive overprice, as usual. And then we hear that the education system is failing. This cannot be in the best interest of this country. And that is all because we have a premier who believes that he knows everything. He's omnipotent. Nobody should question him. No one has all the answers. I certainly don't think that. And it's lamentable that you have that sort of mindset leading a country, because that sort of mindset will lead the country into the abyss. That is where we'll end up. We have things like the National Energy Policy that need to be implemented. Even though we have spent much time on that, for some reason we didn't see fit to enforce it. There's so many things, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm aware of the time, and these things are all reflected in my manifesto. I would encourage each and every one of you to read it. If you don't have a copy, let me know. Reach out on WhatsApp or through email. I'll gladly send it to you and answer any questions you have on it between now, well, whenever. Come what may on Wednesday the 14th. But we really, at the end of the day, have to ensure that come Wednesday, the right choices are made for this country. Because we are at a crossroads where if we don't get this right now, my fear is that we will lose this country forever. We're already on that slippery slope, and if we don't do the right thing, if we return this government to office, this premier, as he tends to do, will say that he has a mandate to carry out whatever he pleases, and he won't be consulting any of us about it. You would have heard a lot of discussion recently about this government and what they propose to do vis-a-vis the financial services industry, etc. One of the things that I would like to share with you tonight, and I beg your indulgence because it is a bit lengthy, but since I don't propose to be an expert on all things relating to the financial services industry, I took the liberty to ask a good friend of mine, a gentleman who is well known, who has practiced for over 50 years, is one of the founding fathers, so to speak, of our financial services industry, Mr. Ian Paget Brown QC, the former chairman of the Law Reform Commission, a very knowledgeable and esteemed gentleman who gladly has provided me with a video which will tell us all about what his views are regarding who is at fault for us being on the EU blacklist and for us ending up once again on the grey list, the FATF grey list. And I would invite you to watch this video, even though, as I said, it is a bit long. But the reason for that is this. This government continues to promote nothing but myths. It continues to issue the same narrative about how they're better than everybody else, whilst at the same time, strange enough, saying, you don't want the smart guy over there or the intelligent fellow over there. You want us because we can get things done. But we know how they do things. I would invite you to ask yourself, is that how you want things done going forward? So I'd ask that you bear with me while we play the video, if you could.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sammy has asked me to address your concerns with regard to the threats to the future of our financial industry, which could, no doubt,